Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Let's see here. An error occurred on Facebook. This is usually temporary. Wait a moment again and try again. Okay, let's see what's happening here. All right, so we are live. I am really excited to have as my guest Judge Gina C. Higgins. She is the judge of the 30th Judicial District Circuit Court, Division 4 in Memphis, Tennessee. Judge, thank you very much for pulling away from your schedule to join us this evening for this interview.
Absolutely. I am so happy and so thrilled to be here. I had to rush home to make sure I was here halfway on time. So thank you for accommodating me, because I am thrilled to be with you.
Thank you. And let me just, before we get started, say that our prayers are with those families in Louisiana and Alabama. And as Ida makes its way to your area, I trust that you all will be safe from the storm in the arms of Jesus. People bracing for that?
So here we are, because we're going to. Yes, we're getting quite a bit of the backlash from the rain itself. And it was actually very windy when I left the courthouse this afternoon. So we're getting quite a bit of that. We don't expect to have any of the damage that they're experiencing there, but we're going to get a lot of rain. So hopefully we won't get any flash flood issues.
Yeah. So Judge, you,
yes.
You're a Perry Mason kind of girl. You've always known that law is what you wanted to do. And so watching Perry Mason, which I liked watching Perry Mason too. I grew up in Jackson, Tennessee. So whenever we could get the antenna positioned properly, we could occasionally pick up another station and I'd get to see some Perry Mason, or at least got to watch it in reruns. So what inspired a little African-American girl watching Perry Mason, and we not having very many examples of people in the legal profession? What inspired little Gina to want to do that?
Well, just watching Perry Mason, it was just something about being in that courtroom and presenting and pulling out the facts and getting the issues before the jury. It was all not realistic. It was not what we would actually see in our courtrooms, but that in and of itself was sufficient for me. I just wanted to be like that white man. I wanted to be in court. I wanted to argue to a jury. I wanted to present to the judge. I just wanted to represent people. I wanted to do those things. And I watched a lot of police shows, and you don't remember this, Pam, but maybe you do. Christy Love was the first African-American female police officer on television. So I saw her, and my siblings would call me names that have to do with wanting to be in law, and I won't repeat those. But it was just all part of my DNA, I'm going to say, that I loved the law back then, and I've always wanted to be a part of it. And Perry Mason was all I had. I didn't have any African-American lawyers to look up to. It was just Perry Mason, but that was okay. It got me on the right track.
Get Christy Love was the name of the show.
That's exactly right. Get Christy Love.
And we're dating ourselves. Well, they're reruns.
Oh, that's right.
and
good answer.
Speaking of your siblings, I want to thank your very, very sweet sister, Virginia, for helping to make this contact and your willingness to do this show, because this is a very, very serious topic to me. I think that we hear so much about the election of other positions, whether it is a state representative, county commissioner, a mayor, the president of the United States. We don't hear a lot about the significance of the position of judges. And for you, being only the second African-American woman in Memphis, a predominantly African-American community, to sit in this seat as a judge, what is it that you think needs to happen to help people to understand why these local elections are so critical?
All right. Well, I'll start with this. You hear people say all the time that all elections, really, at the end of the day, and all politics are local, because it's the local level, the grassroots, that's going to make the difference. But one of the things that's significant and important, and the reason why I think people don't know very much about judges, is simply the fact that most judicial races are not what we consider to be political. They are nonpartisan. They're nonpartisan, especially for us in Shelby County. Now, that's not true in every state, and it's not true in every county, even in Tennessee. But here we're nonpartisan, which means we do not run as Democrats or Republicans, and we do everything in our power to ensure we don't put a stamp of Republican or Democrat on a judicial candidate, because we want people to feel comfortable with that candidate. We don't want anybody to believe you're only going to get a fair shake in this courtroom if you are a Republican because your judge is a Republican, or leans Republican, or leans Democrat. So we try and keep those politics out. So it creates, I think, a mystique about judges. We are so regulated and so limited in what we can say. We cannot make promises as politicians typically do. So we're just almost behind the scene. We're just at a point where we cannot say certain things. And because we can't put that information out there, we can only educate the public about the law, and we can educate the public about the positions of judges, and we can promise them one thing, and that is that we'll be fair. Other than that, we can make no promises. We are limited on discussion of cases and certain matters. So there are just restrictions on us that create this aura of mystique involving judges.
So are you still surprised to see how few African-American judges are sitting on the bench? How few African-Americans are on the bench? Because if you're on the bench, you are a judge. Just recently here in Jacksonville, a woman who ran 18 times and was finally elected. Judge Rhonda Peoples Waters was finally elected and became the first African-American judge in Jacksonville, Florida.
She's persistent. And thank God that she was persistent, right? Otherwise, she would be something other than the first. And it is so... it's just sad that in 2021, we're talking about the first of any ethnic group being in any position. That's just sad, is the best I can describe it as. And especially if you had that scenario in a place like Memphis, Tennessee, where our population is majority African American, we should never have any conversations about the first anything. But we've not had our first African American female mayor, whether county or city, for the most part. So we still have some first that we're going to have to get to. But we are at least represented in most, if not all, of our courts to some degree. We've never had the juvenile court judge, but we do have juvenile court magistrates who serve in a very similar capacity. Other than that, I think we have been on every bench at the courthouse, at all of our courthouses.
And speaking of juvenile court judges, I think sometimes people don't understand even the process, because some judges are making all the decisions.
Correct.
And some judges, it is a jury that's involved.
Absolutely.
Speak to the fact that with juvenile court, that there is a judge who's making the decision. And when we look at the number of African-American and brown children that are in the system, as it has been called, the pipeline to the penitentiary system, and there is one person who's sitting there who's making the call, how significant is it that the African-American community is more involved in who gets elected as a juvenile court judge?
Well, when African Americans, just as any ethnic group, will go to the polls and vote, they can make a difference in who is going to get into these seats. And when African Americans cast their votes based upon what they believe is the most qualified person, that person's going to win. Now, that person can be majority persuasion or it could be a minority persuasion, but the people have had an opportunity to cast a vote and to have a decision in who is going to be the person that's going to represent them in these capacities. Now, I think it's perhaps even more significant in the juvenile court scenario. Our Constitution, the United States Constitution, as well as our state constitutions, guarantee us a right to a jury trial, especially in criminal matters and some matters, but especially in criminal matters, you're going to have a right to a jury trial. Well, it's a little different with juveniles because juveniles are not convicted of crimes. They're convicted of delinquent acts. So their constitutional right to a jury trial is non-existent. So they don't have that unless they're waived over to be tried as an adult. And, you know, that's a really hot topic right now. They're talking about the developmental level of children and whether or not they should ever be tried as adults. And if they are, whether or not they should ever stay in prison for an extended period of time, because it certainly is going to impede their development. And you're going to have a child that's never likely to fare well if he's released back into the population. So there are some serious issues involving that. And when you have these juvenile court judges that are elected by the people, as would be here, they're not appointed, that judge sets up his or her own kingdom, for lack of a better word, and make determinations as to how that court's going to be run, how many magistrates are going to sit and hear the matters as well as the judge. And there are some laws that dictate how all of that's going to go as well. But yes, there are laws that set in place who is going to be that judge, who are going to be those magistrates and what they do and how they do it. But now this all, because it's not a constitutional court, is going to come from our legislators. And the legislators are going to make the laws that determine how our juvenile courts are operated. So that's the real crux of the matter there.
My guest tonight is Judge Gina Higgins from Memphis, Tennessee. She is the 30th Judicial District Circuit Court for Division 4. We're talking about the significance of who is sitting on that bench. And while you don't declare political parties, people still have their feelings, their thoughts, and their opinions. And when it comes to juvenile court, a 14-year-old can't get a credit card, but a 14-year-old can be questioned, and a confession from a 14-year-old without a parent being present can be used against him or her in a court of law.
Absolutely. And we have had a like scenario. I can't talk about cases that continue in our systems, and it's not likely one that'll come before me because the appeal from juvenile court on criminal matters goes to our criminal court, and I don't serve on that side. But even so, the fact scenario you just described happened here in Memphis, and it's a situation that's being hotly contested and hotly fought, involving confessions of children where no parent is present, no lawyer is present, and whether or not it is really just a violation of that child's rights to take a statement from the child without some kind of guidance from an adult in the room.
And I don't even see how that's possibly right.
It's very possible. It did happen. So it is alive and well.
Oh, it happens a lot.
It does. It really does, Pam. It happens quite a bit, probably more than most people know, because a lot of what happens in a juvenile court, remember, happens behind closed doors. Those are closed proceedings. And the public generally does not get to sit into the courtroom, sit in those courtrooms and see what's going on. Now, our courts otherwise are typically open. They're open to the public, and the public can come in, sit in our courtroom, see and hear what's going on, unless we have some sessions that are confidential. And every now and then we'll have a closed session because it does involve children and allegations involving abuse or some other things that are significant for children. We will close the doors and not allow someone in. But let me talk about one thing that we are hoping is going to make the difference. There's a new organization that has been started by some of the judges and lawyers here, And you could probably describe these best as lawyers and judges with a particular kind of conscience that say some things are just not right. This organization is called the Center for Excellence in Decision Making, CEDM. And you can Google that and look it up, look at the website on it. But the organization is designed with a basic concept that we are all by nature biased. We have implicit biases that say we have a tendency to like certain things a certain way because that's the way we've been groomed and that's the way we learned that particular behavior. So we have a tendency to lean towards individuals who look like us, who sound like us, who think like us. And it creates this atmosphere that says, I don't even have to think or be intentional about being a racist or about being discriminatory and discriminating against you, or about not giving you the benefit of the doubt. And just think of it in terms of profiling of African American men, especially on the street. Police officer pulls up, they have one thought process if you're an African American male and what's going to happen to you as a consequence of that stop, as opposed to a white male. It's just implicit, it's built in, it's inherent, and they're not thinking about it necessarily. They don't intend to discriminate, but they're going to, because black is considered bad and white is considered good. And that's just inherent. It's innate. So we in this organization that I am a member of it, are on a path, and we're really on a mission to try and get individuals in leadership authority to educate whoever it is that's out there making decisions about people, decisions that affect the lives of individuals, to know you really have to stop and think before you make a decision. Pull back, think about it before you jump to a judgment. You rush to a judgment just automatically without thinking, because you are being biased against a person because the person doesn't look like you, person doesn't sound like you. The person has a different education background, ethnic background, whatever it is, there is a difference. And that difference is causing you to treat that person differently, whereas you would not treat a person that looked like you the same way. So that we're hoping is going to be the game changer for what's going to happen in the future as to juvenile courts, as to all of our courts, all of our organizations, all of our facilities and businesses. We want individuals involved in this thought process that says, I know I have a bias. And we're not saying that's a wrong thing. That's not wrong that you have a bias. Everybody has them. But we want you to think about those biases before you put them into play.
You know, Judge, that's very encouraging that this group exists now. What does the membership look like as far as who's in the group? Like, are you getting a cross section of people in the legal profession?
We do. We are certainly saturated with judges, but we have lawyers,
Black and white, male and female.
I'm sorry, male and
Black
female
and white
judges.
judge.
Absolutely.
Black and white. Black
and white. That's exactly right. And we have general counsel from our county government, general counsel from our city attorney's office, our county attorney's office, our school system. We have general counsel from some of our major corporations, FedEx, IP. We have, I'm just trying to think through this whole process. Wherever we have organizations and people in charge of people, we're asking them to join, and they're joining, and they're not just saying they're going to join. They're at the table and they are working hard. They are participating. They are being as intentional about trying to make this the game changer as the organization itself is. So we have a lot of hope for it.
Because Judge Higgins, I think that that's where the change is going to have to come from. Because me as a citizen, me as the person standing on the other side of that bench, We don't know the behind the scenes stuff that you know about the legalities of what can be changed. As you mentioned, some stuff has to be changed on the legislative level. Well,
Right.
who's representing the people for that to be changed on the legislative level? You know, it was because of a judge in South Carolina, I believe it was, that worked with Thurgood Marshall, who helped Thurgood Marshall put together the plan for Brown versus Board of Education. This is where we're going to have to go first. You're going to lose here. And then we're going to take it to the Supreme Court. This was a white judge who worked with Thurgood Marshall. And until we have that kind of cohesiveness in the legal profession.
That's exactly right.
Because
these are the people with the knowledge and the skills to make this happen. They know what to do. They're trained to do it, and they can make it happen. Now, unfortunately, politics has just come to rest. It brought a suitcase. It moved in on our court systems, and we really need to get politics out of our court systems. People need to feel that they're getting a fair hearing no matter who they are. And I'll just tell you this quick little tidbit. Years and years ago, when I first got involved with working with legal people, I was working at legal services. And one of the big issues that came up from the big office in DC all the way down the corporate office to all of the branches of legal services throughout the country was that the legal service office in Chattanooga was representing the Klan on a matter. And people were up in arms. They could not believe it. Why in the world this organization that was there to protect the rights of people, and typically they were pro-African Americans and rights that African Americans had and were being denied. So how could they represent an organization such as the Klan? It may have been an individual in the Klan who was a Klansman, either way. And the way it came back from the corporate office is, look, these people qualify. They have a right to legal services just like everybody else. So the justice has to be blind when it comes to race. You have to do what's right. You have to do what's fair. So it doesn't matter about your race. It doesn't matter about your height, your stature, your economics, except in cases where, you know, that's a qualifying factor, except like in legal services. But otherwise, these things are not important to the law. The law is going to do what is right. The law is based upon whatever those rules are, the rule of law. We believe in it. And that's what we need to practice, not politics in the law, not politics in our courtrooms. That's where the book stops.
Well, and Judge Higgins, as you well know, well versed in history of the lack of representation on the bench. As a matter of fact, in Tennessee, I think you said only Memphis and Nashville have African American judges.
Isn't that amazing? And people see Tennessee. You know, Tennessee is considered to be a red state, right? But if you ever come into Memphis, if you know Memphis, you believe that Tennessee is actually fairly well a black state. It is not. It absolutely is not. If you go to Nashville, you may have somewhat the same idea. But Nashville and Davidson County and Shelby County are the only two places where you're going to find African American judges in the state of Tennessee. None are going to be elected or appears to be electable because of race in any of the other cities and counties throughout the state of Tennessee. And it's just where people live and people vote the way they vote. And in Shelby County, it's a blessing for us because of our population and the fact that we are majority African American. We can't get African American judges elected.
I think in Madison County, they did have Judge Nathan Pride at one point. But the Judge, I really appreciate you taking time to share with us this evening, because we don't hear from people in the legal profession from this perspective on how the general public can get involved in asking questions. And, as you said, you run these races and because you don't select a party, doesn't mean that your heart is still where it ought to be.
Correct. That
So
is
you,
correct.
and the rule of law is the rule of law, but it has been bent.
It's been, well, Martin Luther King told us that the arc of, the arc of justice bends, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, I think is the way it's said. I've read it so many times, I don't know why I can't think of it. But ultimately, we believe, because we're a democracy, that it's going to end up being fair. People sometimes have to protest. People sometimes have to push back. They have to demand of their elected officials, judges and otherwise. They just don't sit back and allow things to happen for too long a period of time. Because I think here in the United States, we're spoiled like that. We believe things ought to be right. They ought to be fair. And we're going to push until we get that. And elected officials that don't stay in office sometimes get kicked out because they are not fair. They're not doing what the people elected them to do. And that's the way our system works. And it should work. That's a good way for our system to work.
Reginald Marshall, I happen to know him, my little brother in Davidson County, is giving you an amen, so true. And Jesse Moore in Jackson, Tennessee, thanks for so much for sharing this very important information. McLinda said awesome, and my cousin in Detroit says hello.
Well, the family's on. And you know what, family, and anybody else that's listening, question authority. Question judges, just like you question other politicians. Judges cannot throw a rock and hide their hand. We have to be upfront, open, honest, and we should be, of all people, of good moral character. We should be, of all people, willing to sit and listen and hear what individuals have to say. What we do changes the status of people. It affects their lives. It determines whether their children are going to be with them or not, or whether they're going to be in housing or out. So the judges are really important and significant, and who you elect will make that difference. If you're not comfortable going in front of a particular judge, something ought to tell you ouch about that, and you should question it.
And some people still feel like they don't have a right, they don't have any means of changing or addressing this judge that you may know and you keep hearing repeatedly. I was in Judge so-and-so's court, and this is what happened, and then somebody else has another story on top of that. What advice do you have for people who can testify to those kinds of situations that happen in front of certain judges?
Well, I'm telling you, judges are the most regulated individuals, judges and lawyers, but judges even more so. And they do have disciplinary authorities that you can file complaints against judges on. And these disciplinary authorities do not rubber stamp judges. They are very serious about their jobs when it comes to oversight of judges. So if you get a judge and a complaint is lodged against that judge, it's investigated. Some of them are a little bit frivolous. You're just upset because the judge ruled against you, but all of them are not. And you are bringing these things to the light, right? And the media is still a best friend for the public. You can get these things out there and it can make all the difference in the world. But where you have generally on our trial level, where your matters are heard, you'll have one judge that's making the determination. If it's not a jury trial, you can always appeal. And when you appeal, it's typically to 3-judge panel. At least 3 judges are going to hear what that particular judge did. So you get three somebodies overlooking what happened and examining it to see if the judge was okay. And if that doesn't work, then there's a 5-judge panel above them in the state of Tennessee anyway.
Judge Higgins in the 30th Judicial District Court, Circuit Court, Division 4 in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you. Thank you for your service to our country.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
You were an attorney in the Navy.
Right. That's correct. In the JAG, as I like.
In the JAG What do they call it?
It's the JAG Court, Judge Advocates General Court, the JAG Court.
Served there, then came out, helped to start a law firm.
Correct.
And
a
girl law firm.
That's right.
And the person who sat in the seat that you're one of your partners.
That's exactly right. Judge Rita Stotts was one of the 3 women in the law firm that we had. She was promoted to the bench. She made it to the bench and she passed in 2009. And she was in Circuit Court Division 4. I ran and was elected to the seat. So I feel like it's a legacy that is bittersweet, but it is the right place for me to be.
Well, Judge Higgins, not only have you done a fantastic job in all of the areas that you've been in, you know Deborah in the Bible in Judges?
Right. The only judge, the only female judge in the Bible.
Only female judge in the Bible. You know, she was also in the military.
Yes, I do know that.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. You're following in the footsteps of Deborah.
I'm following, although I will continue to be called Gina. Judge Gina is good for me.
Yeah, I know, but and that is good. But I just want to point out that women have been doing and being in these roles. They may not have gotten the credit for it.
Absolutely.
But as far back as biblical times.
That's right.
A woman who was a judge and a woman who also served in the military, just as you have done. But
let me just say this before you go away.
Okay.
One of the things that's so significant and so important is if we were to go back and look at Deborah in the Bible, we would see that women could and did do certain things. That's what's so important for us now. Young girls need to see us in these roles so that they too will know that they can do it as well. And when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, African-American young girls need to see African-American women lawyers doing what it is they can envision themselves to be. So we're out there and we're proud to be, and we're just grateful for the opportunity to serve. And anything we can do to serve our public, we want to be about the business of doing that.
And this group, the CEDM,
right,
is
Center for Excellence in Decision Making.
Is this group the only one in the state of Tennessee? Are there other groups like this around the country?
We don't know that there is another one like ours. We do not. We've not found one. But we are on that mission to try and make this nationwide so that this is something that is a part of our fiber that everybody understands and knows. It's out there, it's alive and well, but we just have to deal with it. We can't ignore it. We have to have a conversation about it, and we have to be able to confront it so that we can make a difference in what we do and how we do it. If we don't think about it, we'll probably never do it. Let's think about it, let's talk about it, and let's make it happen.
It's excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Who better than those of you who are sitting in those positions to help change a system that is at times flawed?
That's it. And you're absolutely right. We know it, and we ought to be about the business of changing it. So we are trying to be that change agent that's going to make a difference in the lives of the individuals that we serve. We want to do that.
Judge Higgins, my prayers with you as you sit on the bench and make decisions, as you said, that impact people's lives every day. I know you don't take that lightly as you
not at all
into that courtroom every day. Just know that you got an army with you when you walk in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if we can be of service, please call. If I can come back, I can bring an army with me if you like. There are a lot more just like me. I can always bring those back.
I would love to do that, because I think this is the first conversation that I've seen that I've been able to be a part of. Not that there aren't other conversations that are taking place, but I think it's wonderful for us to hear from a judge and to help teach people how they can get involved with what's happening in the legal community, in their legal community. Because guess what? You don't need to find out about this when it's time for you to go to court.
That's exactly right. And they have a little saying that they say to the kids who come to see us, that it is so much better for you to come and see the judge or have the judge come and see you as opposed to you having to appear before that judge. So this is a great way for us to do this. Let's get this information out. Let's talk about it so that you don't have to come in front of us because this is something that could have been avoided or you just didn't know you had these rights. So anytime we can get that information out, Pam, we are more than happy to do so. And there are just so many programs that are out there that are available. So sometimes when you have more time, bring us back and we can kind of lay out some different programs that we do have in place.
Absolutely. You better believe it.
Okay. All right.
Stay safe and dry and COVID free.
Oh, yes. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, we need to talk about that too in the courtroom.
We will. We have so many things in place involving COVID. We have lots of rules that come down to us from the Supreme Court, and everything is based on the CDC. But we are open. Our courts are not allowed to close. We have to be able to give people access to our courtrooms. So we're Zooming like nobody's business. It's a new world. It's a virtual world for us, but we're having our hearings. We're doing everything probably but a jury trial. And some places they're actually doing jury trials on Zoom. I don't want to go there. I'm a people kind of person. I like to touch people. I like to see them. I want them around. So we mask up and we bring them on in. Everybody's social distances. And we're very careful about what we do and how we do it, taking temperatures and asking certain questions. But we're just trying to make sure everybody is safe and comfortable.
Will you stay safe, Judge Higgins?
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Rushing home to be on with us tonight. I really
I did. But it's good to get home a little early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for watching us on Sisters of Wellness. This show, Judge Higgins, I started based on the sisters meeting that they used to have at our church in Meaden, Tennessee, when women got together. And oh, look, somebody said, "Oh, Jerry, hey, Jerry, great,
Jerry Banyan."
Gina from Maine. Jerry, I agree with you on that. As a matter of fact, I started to ask you that when you said that we haven't had a woman as a mayor. I second that, Jerry. Sign her up. Y'all go ahead and start printing the signs.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say about that is I look so good in that black robe. I probably ought to stay where I am.
And Judge, AKA, and then we're going to go. I was about to close, and you saw your soror get sworn in as vice president.
So proud. So very, very proud.
I know.
And I'm told on occasion I even look like her. People say I favor her, so it makes me real happy.
Oh, you're cuter.
All right, I'll take hers.
Yeah, we thank you, Judge, again, and we thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will be back here on Thursday for the Timbuktu Report, and again on Monday for Sisters of Wellness. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a fantastic moment.